So all these things come together with DNS. So what we just want to understand, just make some notes on real quickly on the diagram, is just a couple of things. Let me just get my highlighter out and just make some connections here for us. This point right up here, this is going to be called the root domain namespace. That's where everything begins. That's where we resolve from. And from there, we go down to what are known as our first level or top level domains. So something like com or edu or gov or mil, etc. These are all top level domains. Top level domains are going to be at the beginning, at the very top of the hierarchy below the root namespace for resolution. So if you think about a normal address, www.isc2.org. .org is a top-level domain. You can see it right over here. Inside .org, we will go down to a second-level domain. A second-level domain would be ISC2, or it could be CNN.com. And in the .com domain, we may go down to the second level, and that would be CNN right there, right? And then below that, we may have third-level resolution capabilities where we can go into things like go-kart or FTP or www for protocols, etc. So the idea is that we move through the hierarchy going from the root all the way down. So it's kind of interesting, and let's write out a URL here real quickly just to show you that. And what I'm going to do actually is the following. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use Notepad for just a second. And in Notepad, I'm going to write what a typical URL would look like, www.isc2.org. Now, we normally write the URL this way, and we put that into an application like a web browser. We hit enter, it goes off, it does its magic, comes back, tells us what we need to know. But what we don't realize all the time about DNS resolution is the following. What actually is happening is this, and I'm just going to move this over here. Actually, I'll put it on this side because .org is over there, so we can take a look at this as it goes. And let's break this down. So what we really have here is we have the beginning of a sentence. We have HTTP. HTTP, right, is going to equal the protocol for connection. That's what HTTP is. We have some syntax, colon, whack, whack, or // right? So that is just connection syntax, right? Then we have www, then we have ISC2, and then we have org, right? These, just break these down here, move these down. These are going to be information items that tell us where to locate and what to look for. www, hopefully you know, stands for World Wide Web. In other words, using the HTTP protocol, what location are we actually going to hunt in? We're going to go hunt in the World Wide Web. Then we have ISC2, which is part of the namespace. And this part is actually a second level domain. And we have org, which is also part of the namespace, but it is going to be a top level domain. Let's just paste that in there. And so when we're done with all that, we still have one thing that we need that's missing. It's not there, but it's implied. We didn't put it at the end of this line, but every time we write a sentence grammatically in any language, we always end it, the end of our thought, with a period. Now, we happen to have periods there, but we don't have one after org. We have one after www, and what I actually should have done was write www period, because that implies, hey, stop right there, www, boom, full stop. What's the full stop for? Well, it tells us, hey, we gave you the location, go hunt there, now let's go and look for something else. ISC2, period, full stop, boom. What does that mean? Well, that means that the entire string that names the second level domain is ISC2, and the period implies stop. We don't have any more second level domain information. Now, we're missing a period after org. Seems unusual. When we write a sentence, as I said, we should end it with a period. And indeed we do. But that period is implied. It's not there. Formally, we don't write it. You don't get in the habit of, nor do you write http://www.isc2.org, period. You don't have to, because your web browser implies the period and puts it there for you to complete your sentence. All of the applications, in other words, automatically know that when you get to that point, that is the end of the statement. So we don't put it in, but it is there. And that period at the end that's implied is going to be the reference to the root namespace. And remember, the root namespace is the big old period sitting right up here, right, that we're pointing to. That's the root namespace. And this becomes important because what this means is it now tells us exactly how to resolve the address. The trick is we have to know that unlike in English, where we read left to right normally, when we do resolution in DNS, we resolve the opposite way. We resolve right to left. And so we start at the implied period for the root namespace, and we work towards the left-hand side of the string in order to figure out how to find what we need. So if we do that and we start hunting, we'll see we start at the root namespace. Okay, that's at the top. We go down to our top-level domain. Well, we're looking for org. We're over here. We go down to look for our second-level domain. Well, that's going to be one of the dots down below here for ISC2. We're looking on the World Wide Web using the protocol HTTP. And that's how we actually resolve. We resolve right to left, and we break down the structure of the name or the naming convention we've been given in order to resolve. If we are given an IP address and we're asked to equate it to a name, we simply use the IP and we look for the IP and do a lookup in the registration record to effectively get the same information. But this is how we actually use DNS. And this is how we actually are able to understand the syntax, the naming convention that's provided with the URL, a universal resource locator, which is what the web address is. So next time you type something into DNS, and next time you are resolving, you actually can think about this, and hopefully it will make sense to you or more sense to you, and you'll realize that that's what we're doing. We're just providing a connection string, and we're inverting the string and reading it the opposite way, using the implied period to start at the top and work our way down to find our resolution parameter, whatever it is we want to find, and that's what we connect to. We do have different host record, pointer record, CNAME record, MX record types. These are all types of records. Just want to quickly go through them with you now and at least give you an idea of what they are. So let me just bring back up Notepad here. We'll type up some records really quickly just so that you can understand what they are. You have a record, no pun intended, of them. And then we should be good to go. Let's just do this. All right, so we have what's known as an A record. An A record is a host record. It's one of the most common types of records that we have in DNS. We also have a PTR record. PTR record is short for pointer record. Pointer record does reverse lookups. We have to create those. Those are not going to be there, but we can use them if we choose to. We will have potentially, not always, but sometimes, a CNAME record. A CNAME record is an alias record. An alias record would allow me to say that isc2.org is equal to Snoopy. And if I provide the name Snoopy, it should resolve and equal isc.org. I didn't put isc2, or isc2.org rather instead of is2.org. You get the idea, right? It will be equating something to something else. And so an alias or a CNAME record allows me to do that. Again, optional. I may or may not have them. It's really up to me to decide if I want to create them or not. I will have sometimes what's known as an MX record. An MX record is going to be short for mail exchange record. The mail exchange record is going to be the record that is used to find our mail servers, whatever they are. Exchange, GroupWise, Gmail, SendMail, whatever system you use, you have an MX record that points to that system. And when somebody says, I want to send mail, they look it up and say, this is the system you use. They give you the IP. You go off and you send mail. We will have one and one only per namespace, per namespace zone, SOA record. The SOA record equals start of authority. And the start of authority record is going to be the record that gives us the ability to set up and become authoritative for the namespace. Remember, the namespace is the zone, the information about all the associated records in the isc2.org namespace would be set up, and we'd manage it with an SOA record. We may have one or more NS records. NS records are short for name server records. Name server records are going to be effectively the registration records that tell us what the name servers or DNS servers are that we can use. It provides a list of their names and their associated IP addresses. We have all of those records sitting there. We may have more than one name server record. So we have a variety of different records, as you can see. There are many others, by the way. I just put quotes around the A record so you can see that's what it actually is. But these are the 6 types of records that are very common, that you're most likely to see. There are, again, many other record types. There's about 30 or so that actually exist in DNS servers, depending on the type of stuff you're doing. But these are the most common ones that you're most likely to come across or see. Would not be a bad idea for you to have a sense of these records, have a sense of what they are. Quick idea, hey, an A record, what does it do? Oh, it's a host record. Let's look up the individual IP address and equate that to a machine name, or know the machine name and equate that so I know how to connect to it. That would be good. That would be a good definition for you. Be good for you to have knowledge of that. Be good for you to be aware of that. So the DNS record types here that we've listed are going to be something that you want to probably spend a couple of minutes on. Make sure that you can focus on them. Make sure that when you go back and review, you know what they are. Maybe just make those a tad bit bigger for you so you can see them a little bit better while we're talking. A little bit easier to see, and we'll just broaden that out a little bit. That way you can see them as you go back and you review. But it should be helpful for you to make sure you're aware of these records. Be a good idea for you to be able to review them. So hopefully you'll be able to go through those, study up on them, and make sure you're familiar with what they are. All right, so that's our discussion about DNS.